Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What Is True. That's on YouTube, also on Facebook Live, and also on Odyssey. Usually Odyssey puts them up within 2 or 3 days after they've been recorded, maybe a little longer, depending on uh, what they choose to do or not. I'm going to be reading again from a work by Rene Schwaller called Sacred Science. A lot of this will be doing with him and his wife, who spent 15 years at a particular, what I would call a particular temple at Lazar, I should say, in Egypt. And the title of the chapter is Chapter 5, Symbology and Symbol. And we're about halfway through this book. This is a very thick book indeed. So let's try to get into the reading today. And I hope that you glean some wisdom of what he shares today. A lot of this is what I would call him being able to analysis what we call the rocks, the stones that were used, and why, the purpose of it, to bring about beauty. But there was other reasons also. And like I said, we've already done 4 chapters earlier this times I've done it. So let's get into the book. Thank you for being here. The symbology, including image writing as well as gestures and colors, are aimed at transcribing in a functional manner the esoteric significance of a teachings whose inter-meaning remains inexpressible by any other form. What we call symbology and esotericism are 2 words not often correctly understood. What can be said clearly and described objectively has no need of symbol. What is visible, tangible, or objective, however, can hold a irrational or esoteric idea. This aspect of the object demands a symbol, which can sometimes be replaced by a parable. Irrationality is not to be understood here in the mathematics sense, as, for example, the root of 2 or the number corresponding to the coefficient of pi. These are numbers that never find their term, fulfilling only in a geometric function and diagonal of a square and the diameter of the circle. There are only mathematical indefinite. This is not esotericism, nor does it contain an inner meaning such as intuition alone can apprehend. The situation is different when one speaks of the original Trinity of the Divine Trinity. Catholic dogma says 3 persons in one, which is also irrational and unimaginable, an abstraction which the triangle can symbolize. Hence, there is symbology. It pertains to a unobjectifiable fact and a creative function at the same time. Hermetic art, often and in different forms, evokes this original state, more especially by the word chaos. It can therefore be said that the symbology is the means of evoking the intuition of a function which eludes rationalization, if therefore applies only to the theogony, to theology, to sacred science, in fine, to knowledge of a world of causes. This definition can be illustrated in many ways by Pharaonic images and figurations, stories and legends, but might be more comprehensive at first if it is exemplified by a work based on the teachings of the gospel. The purely symbolic Isenheim altarpiece, now in the Museum of Colmar, Colmar in Assad, forgive me, ALSACE, is a splendid example and a unique and affecting work. The painting is attributed to Matthias Grunewald, Grunewald, but it is the adept who inspired this painting, probably Guido Guerci, Guerci, preceptive of the Antonius of Isenheim, who here commands our deep respect. When a painter faithfully represents a scene or gesture described in the Holy Scriptures, this is but a transcription and not a symbol, even if at the moment it rendered according to the artist's personal interpretation, as with Descent from the Cross by Rembrandt, for example. The Isenheim art altarpiece shows the crucifixion surrounded by scenes and gestures which make sense individually, but are purposely and anachronistic or illogical in their function and in relation to normal tradition. Thus it is John the Baptist, historically long dead by the time of the crucifixion, who points at Christ on the cross. Mary Magdalene, the sinner, is posed as a supplicant before the crucified man, whom she prepared for burial by anointing him with precious ointment. Yet the vase or crucible still containing this precious balm is placed in front of the cross. This ointment is, in fact, the central and essential object of this entire symbology. The painter has not neglected to give the sinner golden hair and a robe of reddish gold, an unusual color which only an adept can be supposed to have inspired. At the feet of John the Baptist, a lamb holds a small, short cross in the right front leg. An anomaly becomes this cross. Because this cross, symbol of John the Baptist, is usually raised on a high staff and held by the left foot. Moreover, from the lamb's left, meaning heart side, a stream of blood flows into a chalice, an image of very specific symbolic value. Next to Mary Magdalene, this masterpiece depicts Mary, mother of Jesus, collapsing in anguish, pale and dressed in dazzling white. She is supported by John, that is Christ's favorite disciple, curiously garbed in bright red, the red supporting the white, reminiscent of the white Pharaonic crown placed in front of the red crown. The crucified Christ, of an abnormally large size in relation to the other persons, has a body marked by a hideous disease unknown in our time, which was known as St. Anthony's fire, or Mal des Ardennes, which the Antonians of Isenheim knew how to cure. The charitable order of the Antonians claimed the protection of St. Anthony, 4th century hermit of the Egyptian desert. This order was widespread in Europe and had houses in Assad and in Eisenheim and in Strasbourg. Two accents should be noted which stress the significance of the image of St. Anthony. The left panel of the painting shows the saint, very richly dressed, holding the symbol of the taunt and towel, I should say, in place of a cross. This is the towel of St. Paul. It is the Coptic towel. St. Anthony's towel is exactly the cross of life. The Pharaonic Ankh, without its female oval, that is, St. Anthony pays no heed whatsoever to the poisonous breath of the monster who spreads the disease with a breath that penetrates the window by shattering it. On the right panel, St. Sebastian is represented as pierced with arrows, a symbolic reference to a particular date. Everywhere the emphasis is placed on the opulence of St. Anthony, on the color red by means of his outfit, that is his coat and cap, and through the monsters, all red, which assailed the saint in order to tempt him. The extraordinary colors and some particularities of this painting are striking enough for this work to serve as an example of symbology. That is, the many anomalies that is depicted guide us in seeking a significance, a enigma such as perhaps can be put in parallel with certain hermetic texts. For example, the writings of Count Bernardius Trismegistus, that is in 1406 to 1490, his lifetime, who refers to the Babylonian dragons, obviously familiar to everyone, or to a singular passage from the hieroglyphic figures of Nicholas Flamel, that's Famel. He lived from 1330 to 1417. This is good and true symbology, as the Christus passion is general when the Lord says, "Hitherto have I spoken unto you in Proverbs, but the time cometh when I shall no more speak unto you in Proverbs, but I shall show you plainly of the Father." And that marks the beginning of the Passion. We have already forced the principle of the Passion in the legend of Osiris, transcribed by the myth. Its two great phases are separated: the Passion, properly so called, with Osiris, and the resurrection with Horus. The practical meaning unfolds through the behavior of the various Neters who enter into play. It concerns a teaching that aims at attaining liberation for the immortal being trapped in a mortal body. I got a picture he has here of it. Something he's got to show here in the book. This is figure 19, St. Anthony. Right here. In Christian symbology, the aim is different. God is humanized, and for resurrection through death, the teaching of the Gospels demands this display of a human body on the cross. This body, show another picture here. And this is figure 20. St. Anthony richly garbed pays a visit to the poor and emancipated hermit St. Paul. This body, that is, I'm going back to the start here, this body incarnating all human sufferings as an example. In truth, it pertains to man crucified in space, cosmic man, the cosmic filling the four orientations of the world and fixed on the cross by the three manifested principles, the three nails. The crucified Christ of this altarpiece beats the stagmonon of the terrible, that is Maldes ardens. The meaning of this can only be that he also cures this disease. Intended here is not a symbol of resignation that would lead one to believe the Lord accepted death from this sickness. The incarnation of the divine word is offered in a fallen world in order to show the way to redemption. But who has erred and been condemned to mortal life? Was it the first man? Or is it a man in general when he enters the road of return? Is not error imminent in creation itself? If there were no divisions into Adam and Eve, there would be no fault or double way. In the symbology, there is a deeper intention, inexpressible by mere words, because it pertains to the law of Genesis in general. This symbology speaks both of knowledge concerning the royal opus and of the process of the human being becoming superhuman. The particular in the universe also includes universality in the particular, and this reversal, real as it may be, is unimaginable. Indeed, the beginning, the very first manifestation, is in essence the division into two aspects. There are complementary, but they are also opposed, as are male and female. creating the fault, which must be expiated by death in order to resuscitate immortality within unity. But this is a possibility only, not a necessity. Male and female created he, them. Androgynous, says the Mosaic Genesis, is speaking of Adamant man. Hence, if this Adamant state did not undergo division, man would be king of the world in the image of God. In the Ne Domol, the first initiated among the black Barnabas, not Barnabas, Bambarus, the male is considered androgynous until circumcision. The severed foreskin then signifies femininity. Once separated, there remains only man as male. Circumcision, the reason for which is claimed to be one of hygiene, here turns out to be a symbol related to essential metaphysic is hope for effect, and be fruitful and multiplied as the sand which is on the seashore. But the king is created perfect in principle. He has nothing in common with the multiplication of the kingdom of this earth. Yet, if the essence, the breath of divine inspiration were not divided in man as well, there could be for him no animated procreation. Only through the breath of life, which is and also exists, can mortal being hope for immortality after his passion. The teaching of the Gospels is complex. Christ, King of the heavenly kingdom, equally reveals the man of earth that is in symbology. Besides the inscription carved in stone, Pharaonic Egypt left many writings on papyrus and allegorical stories, all designed to transmit an aspect of knowledge. There are also a great many examples of symbolism, but there should not be confused with symbology, defined as a functional symbolism. Description, symbology, and character are always based on some historical fact. The aim is to present a rational development, readable as a more or less fantastic or fabulous story, while at the same time transmitting a particular teaching. It is obviously, moreover, that the writing or image carved in the temples convey more than a single profane meaning. As a first important example of the pharaonic symbology, we will present as account of a strange battle of conquest in the land of Keter, Kheta, also known as Seta, or Seth beings, Seth beings. The theme of the famous Battle of Kadesh has been treated by Egyptologists as purely historical fact. A Battle of Kadesh certainly did occur, as the pharaohs always had to defend their frontiers against belligerent nomads and attempted invasions. Now we're going to show you another particular piece of work here. One is showing the east wing and the west wing. That is the arrangements of the Battle of Kadesh at the pylon of the Temple of Lazor. Nevertheless, it may well be asked why this particular Battle of Kadesh is the subject of those grandiose compositions in the name of Ramses II, or again, why this Battle of Kadesh in particular is related by Ramses II. It's well established that this battle can be situated at Kadesh in a bend of the Orotes River during the 5th year of the reign of Ramses II. What is difficult to understand, however, is why the king, after having single-handedly vanquished the immense army of the Kirtur and all their allies, must continue to fight against them for 15 more years, only to agree to a peace treaty granting all advantages to the conquered and finally to marry the daughter of the Keta chief. And that is also, we'll speak about what they call the seated king and the encampment. This is a pylon at the Temple of the Zor on the west wing. Show you that picture here. As the chariots go up here, representing some things. The Temple of Zor gives a general idea of the significance of this battle on the west side of the pylon, where two successive configurations are carved in superimposition. The first composition shows the solar king sitting on his golden throne, his face turned towards the west, that is at sunset, and the king in his chariot charging towards the occident and drawing his bow in that direction towards the night. The second composition shows the image fronted about so that the enthroned king now gazes eastward. He is depicted as larger than in the first representation, a fact not without significance. In the first composition, the king east-west direction is comparable to the daily position of the sun. He is seated and drawing his bow and smaller than he would next be shown. The king symbolizes the setting sun. In the second image, the west-east direction symbolizes the natural path of the sun and its battle against the adversary, that is night. Indeed, the solar king is at first overtaken by night as depicted by the superimposed image showing the sleeping camp in which the penetrating enemy proceeds from east to west. So I'm going to show you that here. Try to two of them here. See if I can get that where I want it. And before I just go ahead and do this one on the other side here, as I show this piece here with the chariot, with the man with a drawn bow and arrow. So this is the Battle of Kadesh, again, Fortress of Kadesh, pylon of the Temple of the Zor, east wing. A brief description of these scenes, as well as of the nuisance and variation expressed according to the respectable sites, will make it clear that this is distinctly a matter of symbology and will show the importance of the orientation and interpretation. Misled at first as to the importance of the armies, he must combat as to their real position. The king realizes at the last moment that he finds himself facing an immense coalition of thousands of chariots and numerous that is, warriors entrenched behind, that is, the Kadesh, the deceitful. The king, isolated from his four army divisions, Ammon, Proc, Ra, and Seth, finds himself alone to battle an enemy who is preparing attack from all sides. He addresses a following prayer to Ammon. This is the one with the chariot, with the man being him. He's being basically surrounded by all these the enemy all around him, and he draws his sword from his quiver. And so it says, the battle of Kadesh, the king alone, conqueror of the united armies. That's on a pylon of the Temple of Zor, that is at east wing. I invoke thee, O my father Ammon. Here I am in the midst of great multitudes of people whom I know not.
All nations have joined themselves together against me. My numerous soldiers have forsaken me. Not one of my charioteers have looked around for me, and when I call out to them, not one of them hearkens to my voice. But I believe that Ammon is worth more to me than millions of soldiers and hundreds of thousands of chariots, more than a myriad of brethren or youths, were they all united together. The work of many men is nothing. Ammon surpasses them all. My voice teaches unto Hermontius. Ammon responds to my invocation. He stretches forth his hand to me, and I rejoice. He calls out from behind me, I am rushing towards thee, to thee, Ramses Merimon. I am with thee. It is I, thy father. My hand is with thee, and I am of more avail than 100,000 men. I am the Lord of strength, lover of valor. I have found a courageous heart, and I am content. All that I desire will come to pass. I am like Mont, that's Month. I shoot my arrows from the right and wage battle on the left. I am as Baal in his hour before them. The 2,500 chariots in whose midst I was, lie smashed into pieces before my steeds. Not one of them has found his hand to fight. Their hearts become faint, and their limbs are become powerless from fear. They are no longer able to shoot their arrows and have no more strength to hold their lances. I caused them to plunge into the water as plunged the crocodiles. They are stretched out on the ground, one atop the other, and I receive arrows into their midst. It is midnight, indeed, on the west side of the pylon by the encounter of the royal armies with those of the Kether and of the enemy Sethans. The entire situation is reversed after the king's prayer. This hour, the seventh of the night, is called She Who Defeats, the accomplice of Seth, and the following hour, mistress of the night, is reached through the door called She Who Commands and does battle for her Lord. The guide for this hour is Horus, doubly possibly one of the names for the planet Mars, and in the book of what is in the netherworld, the triumph Osiris is borne by his vanished enemies. After the prayers of Ramses on the east wing of the Lazora pylon, the king is identified with Ammon, and all the enemy armies collapse before him. Before the eye of Ra emerges on the horizon. The king precipitates his enemies into Uranus, while some of them seek refuge behind the walls of Kadesh the deceitful. The description of this battle clearly shows the symbolic nature of the actions having Ramses, the Sun King, who single-handedly chased and vanquished all the Baals of the night with one gesture. Quote, this battle of Kadesh is the battle of the light against the shadows, but it is also the fixation of the light is in corporate form, which is the first great victory of knowledge over ignorance, the becoming of Tum, according to the Heliopolitan mystery. It is impossible to enter the temple without it. Atum, whence Adam, or Tum, Tum, is the product of this battle which the tablets of the pylon describe. To sum up, the first scene of the west wing represents the setting sun, and then the fronting about of the king, the scene of the east wing describing the battle underscore the nocturnal course and the awaiting of sunrise. Hence, all the actions take place in the darkness of night. The sun being below the earth or within it. The reality of symbolism is confirmed by the representation of this same battle of Kadesh, that is Kadesh, inside the cave temple at Abu Simbel, where it occupies the entire north wall of the hypostyle hall. At Abu Simbel, this representation is divided into two superimposed horizontal bands. The lower register shows the Egyptian army proceeding from west to east in the sense of a nocturnal path of the sun, while the king, seated on the throne of the the tour of the two lands, facing eastward, consults with the princess regarding the treason repeated beneath by the whipping of spies. Behind him, his camp is overrun, and the same moment that was called midnight at Lazor is indicated close to the middle of the wall, expressed by the clash of the two armies. At each end of the bottom register the different divisions of the army, isolated and taken by surprise, attempt to defend themselves. And so this is what is shown here in this particular piece of work. Again, this is at the hypostyle hall, north wall. The sequence of this story is taken up in the west end of the upper register, where the fighting king, all alone in his chariot, charges from west to east, his arrows hurling the amassed enemy into the Oronus. The final victory beyond the fortress of Kadesh is represented at the east end of the scene, where the hands of the vanquished are cut off, while the Sun King prepares his triumphant emergence through the temple door, open eastward and guarded by four colossus, the four elements, pillars of the world. You know, the earth, water, fire, and air. To complete this ensemble, near the exit in the inner northeast corner of the hypostyle hall, there is a scene depicting the ritual massacre of prisoners with a white mace in the representation of Ra, Hor, Akkadian. Ra, the Horus of the double horizon, figure 27. This scene, which usually indicates the entrance to the temple, here marks the triumph departure of Ra from night cavern towards the eastern horizon and his entrance into the visible world. Okay, I'll try to show this to you here. I wonder if if Rene Schwaller was basically kind of figured this out on his own. I wonder if that's what he's done, because it seems that's what he's trying to do, is reveal what has happened from the past, showing this, and basically him and his wife have understood these things. It is precisely the characteristics of reversal, moreover, that underlies the deeper meaning of this rock-hewn temple. There is a double significance here. 8 Osiris, that is Osirian columns. You can see those. Lead this hall the feeling of a courtyard in front of the temple, and yet it never receives the light of day, no more than would a open courtyard at night. The king has vanquished the enemy, and in the end has accepted peace conditions, and advancing to the conqueror, he has signed a treaty inscribed on a silver tablet by the Karata chief. Now, as we said, the king is going to marry his former enemy's daughter, offered by her father with numerous gifts, on the south rock near the facade of Abu Simbel temple. Ramses II has the famous marriage stela, S-T-E-L-A, carved to relate this event. On it is written that the new royal wife receives the name of she who sees the beauty of Ra, the title of the last hour of the night, with regard to this hour preceding daylight. the book of Hours says, the majesty of this meter sails on and arrives on the 11th door. The one who rebuffs the ally of Seth, and at the 12th hour, the one who sees the beauty of Ra. In the book of what is in the Dwa is also said that the name of this site or hour is the shadows which become the appearance of the births. The Pharaonic name for this temple is Per Medius, that is the house or temple that generated him or put him into the world. And Thebius, the crossing over from the east bank of the Nile to the west bank where the kings are buried is marked in the symbology of the Battle of Kadesh by a reversal of the images situated on the interior facade of the Ramses' first two pylons exposed to the northwest. Here we are dealing with a funerary temple, the true orientation of the entrance into the southeast, indicating the precise hour of the day, and the procession towards the sanctuary situated at the northwest brings to mind the sun's daily course and descent into Amitini, the western horizon. On the inner facade of the right wing of the first pylon, hence to the left of the beholder, we find the king seated on his throne, and behind him the camp. The Battle of Kadesh is on the inner facade of the left wing, to the right of the beholder. Here at Zohar, there is superposition of two successive compositions. But while at Zohar, this superimposed position concerns the first phrase. The second, the seated king and the camp. One of Ramses treats of the second, that of the Battle of Kadesh. The royal gesture of these two phases indirectly from east to west, as in the first stage of the representation at the Zohar. On the left wing, the first composition shows the king on the upper part of the scene, drawing his bow in the direction of the fortress of Kadesh and driving his enemies into the Aranis, now covered over by the rank of horses. In the second composition, the older text surrounding the king's figure still shows through in several fragments. So this is going to be the right wing, the left wing, and the second pylon, Battle of Kadesh, and the sanctuaries. This is a diagram showing the first two pylons of the Ramses and position of the Battle of Kadesh. And it shows also like what I would call a hour timing here, where all this takes place. And it's what I call it. It's almost like a compass, but it's not a compass. It's actually showing the time of the day when things start and when things ended. So specifically that Ramses, loving of Ammon, has taken up positions south of Kadesh, hence at noon. At the Zohar, as well as Abu Simbel, the victory of the Sun King is the sunrise on the eastern horizon, while at the Ramsesian, the story of the Sun King unveils an entire different teaching here. It is directly in relation with the book of hours of night and day, representing on a ceiling of the royal tomb, and with the book of caverns, in which it says, the majesty of this Neter is directly towards the hour called Rut Nadir, NDJR. This hour being the 6th of the day. Arise, arise to that the Neters who are in the bark may act in order to repulse Apophis, so that Seth may raise his hand in order to topple Apophis, says Isis in her incantations. In the hour arise for Seth. It is the hour when the solar bark is arrested in its daily round by a sand dune, and during which time 3 purchases preceding the bark force the serpent Apophis to disgorge the water he has swallowed and cut his vertebrae. The children of the serpent Apophis The impious who haunt the wilderness and the desert are also called Sertu, that is, the Scythians, inasmuch as Asians. This appellation embraces the entire coalition, including the Keter, against whom Ramses directs his arrows. Noon here indicates the beginning of the battle against the powers of Seth, that is, noon, the sun culminating a moment of the day, marks the transition between rising and decline. It is the crucial hour or critical hour during which all of nature becomes silent. In Chinese acupuncture, noon is the passage from solar yang to lunar yin. In the second and superimposed composition, the king is depicted on the bottom register, and he is said to have taken up position to the northwest of Kadesh, meaning evening, the first hours following sunset. At night begins at 6 o'clock, that is the west. The specified orientation marks the time of the fourth hour of the night, 9 to 10 o'clock. Accordingly, it is said in the book of hours of the night. The majesty of the Neter sails and arrives at the third door of cutting knives, region of the two lands, who punishes the enemies of he whose heart is tired, Osiris, who causes terror before he who is sinless, she who removes evil, and at the fourth hour, she who is great in strength. This hour corresponds to the middle of the second, or what we call caverns, in which Ra, after he speaks to the serpents who guard the entrance, address the rebels, the enemies of Osiris. Quote, "O you decapitated ones in the place of terror, O you who have fallen without soul in the place of terror, O you who walk with hanging heads tied up in the place of terror, O you upside down ones, the blood-stained ones, whose hearts have been torn, not torn out in the palace of terror. O enemies of Osiris, Lord of the Beyond, chief of the Occidentals, here I have delivered you unto the place of terror, and now I deliver you to nothingness." Once again, on the inner facade of the second pylon, there is a description of this strange battle of Kadesh, but in an inverted position in relation to the scene to the left on the first pylon. Here we are dealing with the passions of the Sun King through the 6 caverns of the night and through the 12 gates, the 12 hours of the night referred to by the sages in the royal tombs, the teachings given by the Querets, Quererts, translated as caverns, but more precisely referring to that which is in envelope, or that which is contained, is related to the vital organs of the anthropodious cosmos. Hence to cosmic influences in human organs. This teaching is esoteric and of the nature of sacred science. Therefore, it is comprehensive only in terms of the leaders of the book of hours of day and night, the book of gates, and the book of what is in the Dwad. These succinct indications should demonstrate that the battle of Kadesh is purely symbolic. It speaks of something quite distinctive from a profane dispute with Hittites or Syrians. In the temple of Karnak, the representative of the battle of Kadesh, on the outer south wall of the hypostyle hall, was almost entirely obliterated by Ramses II himself, leaving a few fragments of the old image showing through the new series of scenes which depict the wars in Palestine and Syria. The dual character of this superposition is stressed by numerous subtitles or sublectives found in all of the newer scenes. Surrender of 2 cities at a time, the fortress with 2 rows of battlements, each with 2 gates. The king tramples 2 captives. He ties up 2 enemy chieftains. And finally, he brings 2 lines of prisoners whom he presents to the enthroned Amun of Karnak. In the final scene, the older image shows through in such a way that the prisoners of the new composition are plunged to the waist in the erroneous waters of the first carving, while Amon's throne itself is poised on the water and surrounded by it. We are here at one of the entrances of the great temple of Amon, where the image of water is always evoked. Accentuating this element, the composition goes so far as to use long lines of prisoners to symbolize undulating waves of water. In terms of the myth, Amon indeed manifests himself in the dew. The effect produced here by the superposition of two successive scenes is found clearly expressed in the interior of the great hypo-style hall at Karnak by the representation of the Theban triad in a nails pose on water. It's figure 40. To the right and left of the entrance door to this hypo-style hall on the south side wall, that is. The scene of the ritual slaughter of prisoners is represented customarily. It indicates the entrance to the temple. The king, his white mace raised overhead, threatens a bouquet of prisoners that he holds together by their hair with a single hand. With a single hand. Facing him stands Amon, who holds out his sword to him. To the left of the entrance is the scene of massacre, means to convey the fixation or terrifying of the prisoners, that is the gift of Amon. This tableau is superimposed on the first phase of the Battle of Kadesh, where the enthroned king is present at the beating of the spies. Amon, standing and holding out the sword, is here outlined against the threatened king. The invocations of Ramses II, called Amon to his aid, are thus found realized in Amon, who acts on behalf of the king. Here's the temple of Amon. The principal aim of the superposition is precisely to concretize Amon, evoked and sings of the Battle of Kadesh, but never actually appearing. It is obvious that in these images, it is the Ammonian principle that acts in place of the king. The scene of the ritual massacre of prisoners represents let's see where I got here. Something happened here. The scene of the ritual massacre of prisoners represent entry towards the sanctuary as a central phrase of becoming, preparatoria to emanation. For if God breathed a soul into Adam, the latter must have been of a purity worthy of this divine breath. The prototype of this scene is found in the Narmer, that is Palais, in the First Dynasty, and on numerous stelas, particularly above the copper mines of Sinai, about 300 kilometers south of the route of the armies. It is therefore quite impossible to relate this horrible massacre scene to an act of war, as some historians rack their brains to do. Among the numerous representations of the massacre of the prisoners in the Temple of Karnak, there is one in the name of Thaumas III, carved in the outer facade of the sixth pylon in front of the sanctuary of the sacred boat. On the interface of this same pylon, exactly on the reverse of the massacre of the prisoners, the inscriptions are found referring to the king's campaign. They conclude with an exhortation to the temple's officials. Quote, "Be ye vigilant concerning your duty. Be you not careless concerning any of your roles. Be you pure. Be you clean concerning divine things. Guard your heart." After the Battle of Kadesh by Ramses, that is the birth of Ra, let us again cite a symbolic gesture to Thronius III, whose name means birth of the moon, in order to show that it is actually a matter of symbology involving the luminary for which the personages are but sign bearers. Let us first of all recall that the battle scene of Zor, Karnak, and the Ramesses, as well as those of Menur Habu by Ramses III, all are on the outer or inner surface of the pylons or on the walls, but always in the open air. Abu Simbel, as a temple hewed out of living rock, constitutes an apparent anomaly, the meaning of which has been indicated earlier. The fact of encountering the gesture of Thronius III inscribed in the sanctuary at Karnak, that thus makes for a very remarkable exception. Of his 17 campaigns in Syria, Cyprus, and Euboea, moreover, the only detailed account related to his annuals is specific at the Battle of Megiddo. So I'm going to show you this again, like he's holding all the enemies by his hand, his captives. It's unique work here. So I hope you can see it here as I show it. It may take a little while here to see it all. So specifically the Battle of Megiddo. Without any image, the latter is described on the entire length of the north wall of the sanctuary of the great temple of Karnak, a wall which is face to face with the granite naos containing the sacred boat. Above this description is an immense scene showing a rich offering of gold and silver vases, as well as obelisk, I should say, not obelisk, obelisks, surmounted by pyramidions covered with electrum, that is silver and gold alloy, which the king offers to Amon-Ra, master of Thebes. The king specifies that all that he did during this first campaign was written every day on a leather scroll on the temple of Ammon. At the time of these events, the Asiatics had fallen into discord and rumbled, that is, against his majesty. Thus, the king organized an expedition to Palestine. Upon reaching the town of Yehem, he held council with his general staff. The leader of the Keter had united all the neighboring countries and was established in the fortress of Megiddo. There were 3 different ways to reach this town: 2 circuitous roads going through the mountains, and a way that was direct but led through a narrow path, which made it necessary to walk horse behind horse and man behind man. Generals evaluated the dangers of engaging in what we call the cutthroat situation and begged Ptolemy not to lead them through the inaccessible road. But the king became very angry and swore that by the love of Ra and Ammon blessings, he would take the most direct route. You see, otherwise, what would they think? These vile enemies who Ra so detested, let the officers who wanted to follow another road do so. Of course, the officers yielded, and the king himself went to the head of the army, protecting his men one by one at the exit from the pass. The enemy awaited him on the other two routes, while the victorious army of his majesty already overrun the valley floor, ready to combat the barbarians. But the shadow had turned, you see, measured by the sun. It was thus afternoon. Therefore, a camp was pitched, and the men were warned that they must equip and prepare themselves to fight the loathsome enemy in the morning. Year 23, that is the first month of the third season, 21st day, the day of the festival of the new moon, the king appeared at daybreak, and the order was given to deploy the entire army. Thromius is at the center in his chariot of electron, like a avenging Horus, like Mentu of Thebes, with Ammon striking his arm. He throws his miserable enemies into panic, and they flee, abandoning their gold and silver chariots. Thornius III, at the beginning of the account, specifies the dates he left the frontier of Zulu in the year 22, the 4th month of the winter season, the 22nd day. So the 22nd Armudia. He reached Gaza the day of the anniversary of his coronation, that is, in the year 23, in the first month of the harvest season, day 4, the 4th day of Pachons, Pachons. The battle of Megiddo, having taken place on the 21st day of that same month, is follows that 1. Between the departure for the frontier on the 22nd of Armudia and the day of the battle of Megiddo, the 21st of Pachons, there were 29 days, that is, a lunar month containing between two new moons. The date of the royal coronation, corresponding to the sojourn of Gaza, was thus found to be at the full moon. The day of the battle corresponds to the dawn of the new moon, that is, to the birth or coming into the world, Thronmus. Furthermore, the text specifies that the king's chariot was of electron, that is, of silver and gold alloy, and that the vanquished army abandoned its gold and silver chariots. Here, gold and silver symbolize the morning of the new moon, birth, that is. You see, this is all symbology, folks. The appearance of the sun at the same time as the young moon. With regard to the choice of narrow and difficult roads, qualified here as being inaccessible also means hidden, mysterious, you see. Cite the same choice of a difficult route by Christian Rosicrucian in the description of the chemical wedding by Andrea. Here's something from that. Says, as soon as I had read this writing, all my joy flew from me. I, who before that had been joyfully singing, I began to weep sadly because I saw the three roads together before me, and I knew, according to the time that was left for me, that I had the choice of but one alone, and I was worried that in choosing the stony road over the rocks, I should die miserably, or I took the long roads, I could lose myself in byways. And because of this long voyage, I could never arrive on time. And he chose the very difficult but the direct road in order to arrive at the palace gate for the marriage of the king and the queen, just as the guardian of the threshold was about to close the doors. Side by side with these great narratives, there exist stories, often very long ones, written on papyrus. Some of these, such as the tale of the two brothers, can also be compared to Hermetic texts. They transcribe more or less clearly the eternal conflict between Horus, the light, and Seth, the shadows. A good example is the tale of the contending of Horus and Seth, or the story of truth and falsehood. These tales have often been commended upon and compared with similar stories found in Homer, the 1,001 Nights, and Slavic or European tales. The capture of Joppa, for example, brings to mind Ali Baba and the 40 thieves, all the while insisting on the supernatural power of the royal mace, Hiti. The story of the shipwrecked sailor evokes the fifth book of the Odyssey and the adventures of Sinbad the sailor, but here the only one to have escaped from a terrible shipwreck has been cast by a wave of the sea onto the island of Ka, where all kinds of food is found to grow in profusion. Its single inhabitant is a gigantic serpent, 30 cubits long, his body encrusted with gold, his eyebrows are real lapis lazuli, and his beard 2 cubits long. From this serpent, the shipwrecked sailor receives many precious things, such as the incense with which the nectars are perfumed, as well as sacred unguents used in worship. These precious unguents are destined to repel the partisans of Seth, and with the eye of Horus, with which they are identified, to restore to the nectar a new life each day with the rising of Ra. Upon his return to Egypt, the shipwrecked sailor is made a companion, that is a shims, by the king. The translation of the word shimsu, as it occurs in Shimazu Hor or Shimazu Ra, as followers or companions of Horus or of Ra, is devoid of significance. A more realistic translation would be either the imaginations of those knowing the secrets of Horus or Ra when it pertains, for example, to the first kings or pharaohs of prehistory. Here is the story. Here in this story, it is obvious that for this shipwrecked sailor, the situation is a matter of receiving the light, which indeed makes him a shims of the king, of the true king. The beginning of the tale of the doomed prince resembles our tale of the Sleeping Beauty. The 7 Hathors, like the 7 fairies, fixed the destiny of a young prince whose birth was due in divine intervention. He must die either by the crocodile, the serpent, or the dog, and his parents want to keep him sheltered from these risks. But the adult prince, fearless of his destiny, goes forth in quest of the adventures and thus attains the hand of a beautiful Syrian princess who was enclosed in a tower 70 cubits high and promised only to whoever should reach her window in one bound in saving her husband from a snake. The young princess conjure his destiny for the first time. He is next menaced by a crocodile who offers to let him go if he succeeds in vanquishing and slaying the spirit of the waters against which he himself is in combat. And here the manuscript ends. The crocodile, be it noted, symbolized the principle of contraction. The famous prophetic story that is the prophecy of Pharaoh, who from the old empire has a different character. A sage predicts to the reigning long king Nefer that a serious crisis will take place in the country and that anarchy will soon hold sway, putting injustice in the place of justice until the coming of a king named Amenei. This pertains to the last decan of the sign of Taurus, during which Egypt actually was disturbed by domestic problems and foreign invasions. On the advent of Amenemel, first king of the 12th dynasty, opened the era of the astrological sign of Aries, the ram, the animal sacred to Ammon, was to bring about a return of splendor and peace. In the adventures of Horus and Seth, who disputed the inheritance of Osiris for 80 years, the Inanit, empowered to pronounce judgment, declared itself incapable of so doing, and in desperation begged Thrall to refer the matter to Nith by writing her a letter soliciting her advice, which of the two young people should inherit the throne. Thus all the Neters, as the great Enit, revealed themselves incapable of passing judgment. Only Neat, goddess of the weaving, showed any discernment. This is one of the teachings to be drawn from this long series of adventures, rich in striking events of all kinds. The Neters make no personal judgments. Being principles, they are elements of cosmic harmony. The Nit symbolizes the male and female, active and passive aspects of the four elements: fire, air, water, and earth, commanded by the quaint element issue of Atan Ra. It is a profound error, therefore, to consider these Neters a imitation of our our notion of God as gods who judge and intervene arbitrarily as men might do. In order to approach a understanding of ancient Egypt, it is necessary to eliminate the infantile notions which have been expressed with regard to pharaonic thinking as a whole. The order of this thought process was in reality formed by a knowledge of an elevated and estimated science, and it is but another manifestation of wisdom to transmit this highest of all teachings by means of narrative design. Lost my place here, sorry. Here it is. Designed to be told to little children by their grandmothers, just as with our studies of Little Red Riding Hood or Sleeping Beauty of the Forest. Symbols. The next section is called, aside from these works of symbology, we must examine the multitude of symbols which emanate the entire pharaonic empire and from its treasure. The choice of these symbols is extremely strict. Never would the ancients have committed an error such as choosing, for example, a seed-sowing woman to allegedly symbolize a Republican, that is, Republican France. Logic alone should have guarded them from imagining such nonsense. The female waits like the earth itself to be inseminated. She hardly sows the seeds. In contrast, pharaonic sages will defeat a fly in order to speak of the volatile a gold bee in order to speak of honey, that pre-digested product which Greek mythology seeks to find in Hymenaeus in order to make the hydroma of the gods. These are accurate symbols found in the titles of nobles, that is, or of kings. So the nobles is the fly, and the kings is symbolized by the bee. One of the most ancient known bas reliefs dating from the 3rd dynasty is carved in wood, enumerated the titles of the great sages. That is Hesi, Hesy, whose profile shows admirable strength and beauty. Hesed, whose name written with the dual form of the purification, that is base, that is HS, means twice blessed, representing he who has received the double benediction. The great personage bears the highest known titles, some of which are so ancient it is very difficult to determine their meaning. The great medicine men, that is the priests, met the ancient prophet of Mem, M-I-N, carpenter, of royal science, royal scribe, grand master of the fly, father of Mem, carpenter of the Linus, great of the city of P, chief of the gods, great of the T of Upper Egypt, priest of Horus, of Mesen of the city of P, Hesi. In the Edwin Smith surgical passage, every medicine man is a priest of Setmet. The Linus goddess wife of Pla, just as Hesed, here the great medicine man, is unknown, it says HK, unknown in title, of the Linus goddess Meth, wife of Anubis. The carpenter centered the axe, inscribing beneath royal science for more exactly royal knowledge, and above royal scribe is somewhat surprising, given that Hess is the first of the 10 most important personages in the kingdom, and that he combines several titles of priesthood. It's impossible to believe him a carpenter as well, unless a particular meaning is attached to his title. Indeed, already in the title of Horus Den, the 5th king of the 1st dynasty, there is a high functionary who bears the title of carpenter and mason of the Golden Palace. In the Middle Ages, the carpenter guilds had proceeded in the possession and bore the raven on their banner as a symbol. This symbol is reminiscent of the Hermetic raven and the raven of Noah, support of the light and the perfectionist, where for Noah, the dove no longer returns. The symbol of the raven, though akin to the black bull of origin, is a volatile whose offspring was born white and according to legend, are not recognized by their parents until they turn black. There is a relation in this conception of the raven with the carpenter, who stars by making a framework and finishing with a covering superstructure. It may also be pertinent to recall that the father of Jesus was said to have been a carpenter. When Hesed, that is next called the Grand Master of the Fly and father of Mem, and once again carpenter of the Linus, bearing an unknown symbol on her back, the symbol of this title is to be compared to the Nekhaka scepter which men carries in his raised hand. This is to be understood as the sublimation of Mem, analyzed first of all by the fly, the volator that is, which here replaces the bee reserved for the king, then by the father of Mem and the carpenter of the Linus. This unknown symbol is found again on the back of the Linus, and curiously enough, in the text of the Middle Ages, where it specifically carries the meaning of sublimation. Finally, the 4th column of titles mentioned, that is of Hesed, is great in the city of P. Double capital of North, Death and P. He is the most eminent and the greatest of the 10 of Upper Egypt. That is the first of the 10 judges composing the Supreme Court, sworn to the name of Mat, who is truth and justice. This title demands and implies well-tested moral qualities, because it is to be remembered that the nature holds falsehood and abomination. At all times in Egypt, justice and truth are what the accomplished man must bear in his heart, so that Mat in his sublime offerings. In the fifth column of the inscription, Hissus is called priest of Horus of Menson, the place where Horus will wage his final combat against Set. The epitome of all these titles of nobility and priesthood, again reminiscent of the designation of a carpenter, twice expressed by the symbol of the axe. The name of Mit, M-I-B-T, is well known from woodworking scenes in the tombs of Fifth Dynasty nobility, and the uses of this symbol as well as in its name are beyond discussion, but variation in its spelling are puzzling, as for example, in certain texts referring to works executed for the temple, there the axe, Mem, M-I-B-T, is replaced by a diadem called M-D-J-H-U when designating carpenter's work, as in this sentence of Anita, I-N-E-N-I, high official of Thonius I. One who's called a carpenter, the august barge of 120 cubits in its length and the 40 cubits in its width in order to transport obelisks. Isn't the carpenter the one who crowns the house and executes the temple turrets which pierce the heavens? Is it the function that must be sought when a tool is used as a symbol, not the worker who uses it? Were the tool to designate the worker, it would cease to be symbol. You see. Hesed the sage is represented as carrying an inkstand on his right shoulder. In his left hand across his chest, he holds the scepter of prefect, and the staff of a pilgrim. The symbolic meaning of the staff is found at all times, even in Wotan's staff of ruins in the Nibelung. I don't know how to pronounce this. Nibel Lugan, at that of the pilgrim seeking illumination at St. James at Compostela. The very name of Hissus is written with HS, specified by the base Hes, H-E-S, and followed by the dual form, which is indicated by two stalks of reeds. The boss, His, the coloring of which conveys that it is made of gold, silver, or lapsui, is used for purification. This elegant oblong base is used, for example, in the purification of the king when he officiates as priest before entering the sanctuary. The most typical of these rituals, that is at lunar times, Thoth and solar Horus, which each one of these vases pour benediction in two streams crisscrossing above the king's head. This purification is to be made 4 times, once towards each of the 4 cardinal points, and this ritual gesture is performed while declaring, quote, "The purification is my purification, and my purification is thy purification," quote, end quote. There's identification between the one who makes the offering and the one who receives it. These offerings or purifications are made either with water, that is baptism during the name given by Ammon, with the onyx, that is the key of life, or with the 3 symbols in succession, the Yas, the Ant, and the Adal. It is not a matter of actual pouring a liquid, be it water or any other fluid, but of a gesture of influx, which can just as well be that of celestial neter. Hissus himself then is the double vase of lunar silver or solar gold. He is identified with the Hermetic opus and is great as a great medicine man of the Hermetic king. He is master of the sacred science. So I've got some symbols here to show you. Bottom page. Okay, here we go. So that was figure 28. So the side posts of the temple great entrance door are often ornamental with horizontal bands of bas reliefs portraying the 3 symbols of UAS, Di, and Ankh. placed on a basket. The latter is reminiscent of the closed secret basket of Dionysus in Egypt, is represented the all, the totality, and in certain instances the mastery. These three signs are generally read: prosperity for Yos, UAS, life for Ant, and stability for Di. The explanation of these symbols is really quite difficult. It is evidence from their inscription on the door and from the basket that supports them that they involve the three principles of beginning, the magnitude of origin incarnating the divine word, it calls in the heterogenetic of a malil, which has previously been perfected homogeneously, which we call a nun, N-U-N. They are the three principles in passant, but not yet manifested in existence. The nature of the objects which serve as symbols inscribed in the stone, as well as the object attributed in various circumstances, will therefore best uncover the reality these images are meant to evoke. The UAS, commonly called the Key of the Nile, is represented in the Tut Ankh Amun panoply of canes and scepters in its natural form, the branch of a tree entirely covered with gold. The symbol is indeed a tree branch cut off along with a piece of the trunk or the larger branch from which it stems. And then again, section after having put forth two new young branches. And I'll show you what this looks like. And this does definitely look like that's what it looks like. Part of the branch off of the tree, part of it. So we have already described the object's natural origin, seeing it in the Tut, Ankh, and Amun treasure, carefully treated and entirely gilded, serves to confirm this choice as well as to show that the ancients knew how to compose their symbols. This UAS scepter is placed in the hands of all the meters and plays a very important role. In fact, it pertains to a living branch conducting the vivifying sap, but this sap only ascends without, again, descending as it must do in order to take on body beneath the bark. This is one of the reasons for choosing the object as symbol, and in particular regarding the intentions of the flux of the word. The nourishing sap, height of the philosophers, is not yet really manifested. It pertains to an activity, the creative function, which is not yet the created. In other words, a opportunity for just an opportunity actually to ascend, so to speak, but has not yet taken place. So there's great promise, but yet that has not taken place. We know that this creative function is the secession of the unitary state, the fall of the absolute into the relative, which the Jewish Kabbalah calls the rebellious archangel. In pharaonic myth, it is Seth whose evil actions is separation, the principle of dualization evoked by the image of the cloven hoof, fork-tongued devil of our Middle Ages, or the serpent of the Mosaic Genesis. The UAS is therefore at one and the same time the symbol of the marvelous act of creation and of the symbol of the marvelous act of creation of the evil is insistence. The marvelous act of creation is simultaneously the origin of evil. The vitalizing sap divines, creates oneself while generating opposites. When the first aspect is to be represented, the piece of the large branch itself is left as it is. When the magnificent act of division is to be shown, the stub of the large branch is transformed into a semblance of the head of an ass or of an anterior. The point is the ears are cut, ears which no longer know how to hear the divine utterance. Thus, an image expressed in made of the evil set. The imagery of our Middle Ages gives the devil the head of a fawn with pointed ears and the hooves of a goat. The animal symbolizes lubricity. The pharaohs were more discreet and philosophical, yet they knew very well how to be direct and even cruel in their description without ever being immodest. The second symbol of this trinity is the Ankh, which is said to be the symbol of life. Bas reliefs show Amun or Isis, for example, giving life to the king, either through the neck or with breath through the nose. This Ankh is presented as a loop crossed by the horizontal bar, but the two elements are not truly knotted. Sometimes the horizontal bar is girded with a tie. Sometimes it is hollowed out, containing another bar. This symbol is to be regarded as the potentiality of a legator. This crux ansata is thus not really a cross, but a symbol of the intentions to knot together two elements without having truly done so. Although an actual mirror in the usual shape of the Ankh has never been found, the latter is sometimes even since represents in the form of a mirror. This can be a guide to research, as can the fact that and this is what I'm going to show here. Is this figure 30 here of the Ankh? Because there's different ways of looking at it here. And there is A, B, C, and D here. Which is what I was just sharing this earlier here. The A is presented as a loop crossed by a horizontal bar, but the two elements are not truly knotted. And then sometimes the horizontal body is girded with a tie called the B. So I'm going to try to get this as close as I can get. This is really a good look at this, and I can get it to you here of the Ankh. You see the one, the A and the B part here, and I'll read the other two. See, this symbol is to be regarded as the potentiality of someone who's going to move in the right direction, but has yet to do that. Okay, so there's an opportunity. This cross and sata is thus not really a cross, but a symbol of the intentions to knot together two elements without having truly done so. So there's a potentiality. And I'm looking for the last one here, and I don't know where it's at. It's supposed to show that. Oh, okay. It's just A, B. Okay, I see. Okay, it's no D. It's just A, B, B, C. Okay. Information such as this helps to discover the intentions and the choice of the image. The mirror reflects an unreal image of the object while being the exact image in reverse. Basilius Valentinus, when speaking of tincture or soul in the Greek work, used the symbol of the mirror as presenting an intangible appearance, which the ancient sages called the odor of the god. It is said that the soul ties body to spirit, and yet the soul, although visible, is not tangible. It is the eye of Horus. Thus, the knot of Ankh indicates, but not executed, is that which will give life to the spirit of the UAS when linked to the third symbol, the die column. The Ankh is not life, but it is the Ankh that gives life once the two principles of spirit and body exist. Note that the basket, which contains or carries the whole as well as these three symbols, it is itself an image. An explanation of the three principles are not yet the theme. Hence, the die or column of Osiris is the principle of stability bearing the four elements which makes for formal existence. But the die is not yet the Ka. Die will be Ka as soon as there is corporeality through the distinctions of spirit, of soul, and of body, which makes their interaction possible And this will come about through either the direct way or the indirect way. The column of Osiris is truly the symbol of stability, of continuity within life, but the principal died next becomes the actual Ka, the fix, supported, giving corporate form to spirit and to soul, or Pacific tincture. When in the course of these explanations we see that the basket bearing only the Ankh, framed by two UAS, I guess you had to pronounce it, we obviously are not dealing with a bodily form, but only with the spiritual barrier of the soul. This image represents in the door leading towards the temple, an image which was profusely reproduced during the Romantic period. It is a beautiful example of what is meant by symbol. That is, the writing evoking abstract states difficult or impossible to describe in words, and which only the fact can render comprehensible. The lesson to be drawn from this symbolic teaching is that there is a marvelous creation which puts the all into the world all at once. The words at the beginning that is in God, this God, who is the Word. From it can result royal perfection, Christus, or Herodian, or a contradictory existence with his rebirths, owing to the die, emanated by the Yos, linked by the Ankh. Khonsu, 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 the fruit portrayed in the Theban triad, Aman, Mut, and Khonsu, is the reunion of these three scepters in the final phase of the pharaonic attainment. Khonsu also bears the Heg, Heq, and Neghakaka scepters, attributing the royalty. Hence, he unites all of the scepters with the exception of the Wadj. Figure 40 and 48. So let's see, that was figure 30 there. So I'll show that later on. So figure 40. No, that's 31. So we'll keep going on. Khonsu as dolphin, attested by the characteristic braid, is the reunion of all the powers with the exception of expansion, growth, and vegetation, which are symbolized by the Wat. A stalk of Papias is full bloom at this stage, and Khonsu wears on its head a slender crescent supporting a disc, the new moon. In this matter, he represents the condition of growth or vegetation. The Osiris column, the die, as fixed support here becomes the sheath containing the Ankh and the Yos. It is no longer the image of Trinity borne by the woven basket, but the reunion of spirit, soul, and body within a new oneness, and indicated by the die, an incarnated unity capable of going towards resurrection. This is symbolized by the Aquila, or spiritual character of the couple, Aman Mu, reuniting under the Ankh symbol of the soul, all attributed of all the phases through the rounded and out-thread horns of the ram of Aman. The papyrus with but the blooming corolla was chosen to symbolize expansion, to blossom out in vegetative growth. This plant appears in the marshes of the Nile, what is like a first and intense explosion of vegetation. Wat is also the sign of the color green, which is itself synonymous with vegetation and hence with growth. In addition, another sign is, to be precise, symbol like the Wa. Such as the eye in a disc, the symbol is made to speak. In the matter of erotic symbols, it becomes a speaking image. The disc is solar, the eye is light, and the Wa then represents vegetation. In this instance, it will be tinted blue because the eye of Ra is hidden in or beneath the solar disk. The color blue pertains to the lunar light, the moon itself being white and reflecting solar light like a mirror. In order to complete the group of essential symbols pertaining to this phrase of Genesis, we must cite the sign of ligator, represented by the tube of the tracheal artery ending at the heart and the lungs, the complex of the HATY. This is the figure 31. I'll show you that now. One is going to be the Wat, and the other is going to be the mirror. better here. So you see the eye with the mirror and the watt here. That's in figure 31. The phases of Genesis, we must cite the sign of the literature. I said that wrong again. Sorry. We already gone through this part, have we? Let's see, make sure, because I changed this thing. Yes. This is the center of respiration, the literature of spirit, here symbolized by air capable of animation with the living and nourishing fluid of the blood. This symbol, SMA, is often seen depleted on the base of the throne on which the king is seated. Two Nile gods, one bearing the symbol of Upper Egypt belonging to the white crown, the other that of the Lower Egypt belonging to the red crown. Tied two flowers on the tracheal column, the bulrush of the south and the papyrus of the north. This literature can also be made by Horus, master of the north, and by Seth, master of the south, who is often replaced in this function by Thoth. This is going to be figure 48. Still, we haven't gotten there yet, so we'll continue on. Ra is the sun absolute, you see. The eye of Ra is the visible sun, giver of vitalizing light and warmth, but also a burning fire. Atom is the solar disk, the sun materialization. The eye of Ra plays a very important role in the myth because it is the source of all life. This life, which Horus represents in its function as subtle and sublimated fire. So I'm going to show you these symbols here. This will be SMA is the one looks like almost like almost looks like a spade type of shovel, but not quite. The other one is the tour of the two lands. This is going to be the bottom, so I want to make sure I get this in the proper place. See if you can see that right there. One, like I said, on the left looks almost like a spade type of shovel, but it's not. Just kind of want to make sure the differential here. I see someone here, the old church radio service here. Gentleman's here, been here for a little while since 346. Probably just about almost finished with this particular chapter here. As we continue. Ra had seen forth his eye, which did not return, so Ra sent Shu, S-H-U, and Telfna to bring it back. But the eye was outraged when it returned because it found that another had grown in its stead. And then Ra took the eye and placed it on his brow in the likeness of a serpent. Since then, the solar eye governs the entire world because the serpent became the symbol of Ra, Putianson. It is since that day that Shu was called Honorius, which means he who has brought back the far off distance. By this fact, the eye of Ra, which this Neter bears on his brow, becomes the radiating eye, the divine word. It thus becomes the Uraeus, the third eye of the king's forehead, powerful protector and destroyer of Ra's enemies. The Uraeus is the Najah of Egypt, the dreaded, thought peaceful and timorous cobra, dangerous for its spit and deadly for its bite, but only if it believes itself attacked. The snake is the symbol of duality. See, it separates the right and left sides of the brain. Likewise, the nervous system is dual, sensor or motor, active-solar through the sympathetic or passive, decontractile through the vagus or parasympathetic. This dual aspect is human. It is thus symbolized by two urea, or one Uraeus accompanied by a head of Mut. the vulture, symbol of a hatching femininity. It must be understood that although the nervous or physical manifestation is provoked by the flux of the Uraeus, that is the Kundalini, the cause, the Uraeus itself, is transcendent action. This cause can be influenced by certain practices of true yoga, which are always withheld from general knowledge on a vital level. They can be very dangerous. Through sacred science, everything is ordered and related. When power is placed in the hands of men who are themselves not dominated by a superior force, which can be a moral force, its road will invariably lead to evil. Where is the person who has never, absolutely never abused his or her power, be it the power granted by fortune or in the driving of an automobile? And that is the end of chapter 5. And so this is approximately, how long is this? Almost 2 hours long here? No, about an hour and 36 minutes here. So again, it's interesting that these symbols here. Let me just post this one quickly here, which I think is very critical of the Ankh. I'll post it last here because it's kind of important to me, I see. So these are important symbols here that express some deeper spiritual things that are taking place within someone. So I just wanted to share that with you guys today as I continue to do the reading of this particular marvelous book by a gentleman who was from France, Rene himself. A man who took his time, spent 15 years in Egypt. I don't know if he was well off, meaning I don't know how in the world he could afford such a thing because him and his wife went there. So, but his wife was also very educated. She's written books too. Um, that's something that most people are not aware of. And so, yes, the Ankh is a symbol of everlasting life. Yes, yes. Good to see you, slanted sleuth with the truth. You must be off for the holidays, I gather. So it's just interesting what I'm seeing here. I'm reading this book here, and it's the first time I've never read this book before. So it's just interesting, and the symbols, which the symbols actually give a what I call yes, Steve. Yes, that's right. I was going to say Stephen, but I didn't know because I have a guy I know is Stephen, and I didn't want to. Sometimes people get kind of funky about their names if it's not pronounced right, either Steve or Stephen. So I recall when I was a child, or sometimes you say certain things and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or some kind of, oh, Timmy. That's another one. Hey, Timmy. It's like, I don't like being called Timmy. My name's Tim. It's like, well, wait a minute. I just knew you about 6 months ago. And you called yourself Timmy, and now you're saying you don't like that because I'm grown up. It's like, not really, but anyway, they don't like being called Timmy. They want to be called Tim, or some sound word, type of thing. So because a lot of times, simply, I think even with that's one word, Timmy and Tim. Um, Timmy sounds boyish, so to speak. Call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for supper. Okay, lots of laugh. That must be the word supper. That's a southern word there, Steve. That must be you from the south of one place or another, because usually people who are from the south would say supper instead of dinner. So dinner is I would say probably more of a Yankee word or Midwestern word. So yeah, I'm just about to conclude this chapter here. So I just working on it today. And we'll do chapter 6 also. Nope, you're from Minnesota. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, well, you usually say the word y'all. I also recognize that. You say that. Well, y'all is definitely Southern. So I just thought you might be from the South. So that didn't work out. That didn't work out. You don't know, but that's, actually, the funny thing is this. Yeah, the funny thing is simply, I won't keep you much longer. I've got to go too. But the funny thing simply is that the many people are coming from up north now are come here. And so I say you guys, which I've been up north also. I haven't lived there, but I've been up there and I just picked up it real quick. But anyway, I just it's no difference as it used to be. There used to be a difference between the draws, and saying something like Ewans. I think that was a Midwestern. Ewans come here, y'all, and then you all, um, you guys, all that, goes through the bitter here sort of deal with the water, I should say. Yes, yeah, yeah. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Okay, you take care, Steve. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. It's pretty cool here today, about 50 degrees, but us in the South can't handle this cool weather, and you guys can. So, all right, good to see you. You take care. See. But like I was just explaining here, simply, we'll probably do the next chapter next day or two. This book I've got to finish because I've got to return it by the 22nd of December. So I've got to, get as much out of it and basically read it, so to speak. So that's what I'm doing. And it's not that many more chapters left, but there is also what I call his. He's got bibliography here, and he's got 8 appendix on this particular deal. So there's a lot of appendix he adds to this particular book. And again, like I said earlier, I was just getting ready to conclude with simply is that him and his wife. His wife also was one who wrote quite a bit herself, and she was, as far as I know, she was just as brilliant as he was, and she went along with him, which I don't have a problem with. I'm glad that she went along with him. Made it probably easier for him to do certain things. So, but anyway, it's good to see Steve. Thank you for being here, Steve, and wish you a happy holiday or Merry Christmas also. And we'll conclude the recording today. And take care. And we'll see you. We'll see you soon.